Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Taylor Overstreet, and I'm part of the marketing team here at SharePoint Technologies. Thank you all for joining us today for the State of Lateral Recruiting Trends, Challenges, and the Road Ahead. We're excited to have such a strong turnout. Thanks for joining us. It's a great topic to talk about. Lateral recruiting has become one of the biggest drivers of law firm growth. And as we head into 2026, the market is shifting faster and faster, and lateral moves are already outpacing all of last year's totals. And firms are under new pressure, new challenges every day to compete for top talent while trying to strengthen their culture and retention and long-term strategy as well. Over the next hour, you're going to hear from some exceptional panelists, some speakers that have agreed to join us that we're so happy to, from law firms to search firms. It's going to be an insightful conversation, and we're really thrilled that you're here for it. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please drop them into the chat along the way, and we'll try to address them in our conversation. But just to let everyone know, the webinar recording will be sent to those who signed up tomorrow. So have the look out for that in your inbox tomorrow. Well, let's meet our speakers, shall we? I've dropped in the chat, actually. You can see all their LinkedIn links. So you can kind of connect with them, see what they're all about. And if you like what they have to say, maybe you can chat them up afterwards as well. I'm just going to start with Jessica. You are first on my head count, or my headshot here on my second slide. So if you would please introduce yourself, and we can go on down the line.
Sure. Thanks, Taylor. I'm Jessica Grayson. I am the Chief Growth Officer at Stradley, Ronon, Stevens & Young. We're a law firm with about 230 lawyers across 5 metro areas. I'm based in Philadelphia, and I oversee lateral partner and group acquisitions, as well as marketing, business development, and partner development programs.
Awesome. And Jeffrey?
Hi, I'm Jeffrey Lowe with CenterPeak. I'm the market president for Washington, D.C. I've been in the industry for about 25 years now. And prior to entering this field, I was a partner with Hogan and Hartson, which is now Hogan and Levels.
And I'm Dave Maurer. I'm an executive director at Major Lindsey in Africa. We've been in legal search for 43 years. I have the privilege of working with the western half of the United States for our partner recruiting team, and I have a counterpart that's on the East Coast. Very happy to be here and participate in this conversation.
And I'm Tracy McIntyre. I'm the Director of Legal Talent at Rivkin Radler. We have 6 offices, 5 in the Northeast and 1 down in Jacksonville, Florida. I started at this firm about 12 years ago with 130-something lawyers, and now we're at about 250. So we grew, doubled in size since I've been here.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. And last but not least, Phil Flora, our moderator for today's webinar, VP of Sales at SharePoint Technologies. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to our moderator, Phil, and kick us off, will you?
All right, Taylor. Good job. I appreciate the effort. Let me jump in. We're going to share a little bit of the numbers so far for 2025, taking a peek into where we are sort of year to date. I did the numbers looking through October of this year. It's a quick snapshot really to get the conversation going. This is not our state of the legal industry. We'll do that in January, but it's a quick start just to kind of see where we are. As Taylor mentioned, it's been a robust year for lateral hiring thus far. So we're going to focus in on the start with the AmLaw 200, and you can see lateral hiring is up close to 15% year over year when you compare 2025 to 2024. Looking back further, we see robust years in lateral hiring in 2021 and 2022, but essentially those were sort of correction years from 2020, the lack of hiring that happened during COVID. So we saw, bounce back years in 21 and 22. We saw a big decrease in 2023, which was mostly in associate hiring, which saw a 33% decline in 2023 versus 2022. Slight increase in 2024 over 2023, but again, 2025, we're seeing sort of a big showing and on par with where we were during those boom years of 21 and 22. When we expand those numbers out to look at all firms with a minimum of 100 attorneys, again, looking specifically within the US, and looking specifically just for the first 10 months of the year, this is essentially like the NLJ 500. We actually see even a greater increase in year over year, just over 15% in total hires in comparison to last year. And we're actually outpacing 2021 and really on par with 2022. So big hiring boom thus far for this year. And we're going to see where we land the plane as we wrap up 2025. Also interesting to point out, really consistent growth in partner hiring all 5 years. As evidence, any partner, and people will talk about it, any partner with a book of business is always of interest to law firms looking to grow. When we look at retention, it's one thing to grow. Firms that are growing, you heard you're going to hear from Jessica and Tracy about their firm's growth. It's important to hire, but it's also important to hold on to folks when you do hire them. When we look at retention, we look at the number of attorneys that stay at least 3 years after joining a firm. And when we look at it, we're looking at here 2020 through 2022 full years for data, and looking at the percentage of attorneys broken down by associate partner and counsel that stayed at least 3 years after joining the firm as a lateral. You'll see, looking at it, over 50% of associates that join during those years leave within 3 years. Partners, it's 25 or close to 25% of partners leave within 3 years. And then counsels, that number is close to 40%. Expanding this out to that grouping of firms with at least 100 attorneys, you can actually see the numbers are even slightly worse than they are just within the MLaw 200. Now we can take into account those years. 2020 was sort of a slow year for hiring. There were some layoffs. We're not accounting for how people leave or why people leave. People leave for a number of different reasons. We see in 2021 and 2022 those robust years for lateral hiring, which in turn means it's going to be a struggle to hold on to folks. But I did actually run the numbers for 2023, which really aren't fully 3 years out. We would need to be until the end of 2026 to account for that. And we see that the numbers are actually on par with what we saw during those 3 years. Jumping over into breaking down the lateral hiring by practice area. In this, I'm just looking specifically at firms with a minimum of 100 attorneys. We see litigation has had the most, and this is just 2024 versus 2025. Litigation has the most hires thus far, which is not really that surprising, followed by corporate, labor and employment, real estate, IP, and banking. Almost every practice is up at least 10% in comparison to last year, with the exception of labor and employment and IP. We see big increases coming from bankruptcy, real estate, and banking, 29%, 34%, and 35% year over year growth respectively. Diving into individual attorney types, we see big increases in associate hiring for real estate and banking so far on a year-to-year basis, with 53 and 63% increases, followed by corporate, tax, and bankruptcy. For partner hiring, we're seeing big increases in trust and estates, healthcare, and real estate, all with roughly 20% growth year over year. And for counsel hiring, we see almost a doubling in bankruptcy. We see an increase of over 61% in healthcare. But counsel hiring is the only grouping of attorneys where we're seeing declines in comparison to last year, 12% decline in IP and a 1% decline in banking. We're going to dive quickly into comparison of diversity hiring. Again, looking at 2024 versus 2025 for the first 10 months of the year for that grouping of firms with at least 100 attorneys. Female hiring is up 15% on a year-to-year basis, which is mirroring the larger lateral hiring population. But we see a big increase actually in ethnic diversity hiring, up over 24% this year in comparison to last. For our next grouping of data is going to be around exit data. So when we look at the exit data, we're always interested to see where attorneys go when they leave. This was a chart that we actually did during our State of the Legal Industry webinar earlier this year. So this is looking at 22, 23, and 24. Just within the AmLaw 200, we see that the largest number of folks that leave an AmLaw 200 firm go to another AmLaw 200 firm. That only accounts for a third of all exits. 2/3 of all exits actually go to other entities. With the next leading group being firms outside the AmLaw 200, with roughly 20% of all exits going to firms outside the AmLaw 200, followed slightly behind in-house positions on an average of 18% over the last 3 years. And then the remaining is a group of folks that go to government, academia, private practice, and or they just retire. Finally, we're going to touch on combinations and acquisitions. In the news, it almost feels like every day there's a new combination happening. We just heard about Ashurst and Perkins and that potential combination. This year has been a record year for combinations. Through October 31st, we've seen 50 firm combinations thus far. We base this on when the combination is finalized and when the new combined firm goes live. The total number of attorneys coming from the acquired firm or the smaller firm into the larger firm has almost doubled so far this year in comparison to previous years, meaning we're seeing more firm combinations, and they're involving larger firms than previously. In addition to tracking those combinations, we also track retention rates post-combination, and we've seen exits from attorneys post-combinations. On average, across all 50 firms, we've seen the retention rate is 92% for all combinations thus far this year, and only 27 of the 50 combinations have seen everyone stay at the firm since the acquisition went live. All right, so that is a quick snapshot into the data thus far for 2025. Again, more to come with our State of the Legal Industry webinar, which will be late June. You can scan the QR code to stay connected with us, to learn about our legal insights and thought leadership, sign up for the State of the Legal Industry webinar and our newsletter by scanning that QR code. But with that, I'm going to turn it over to the group to capture some of their thoughts and feedback. We're going to start with you, David. Give me just some of your thoughts on what you've seen so far from your perspective with 2025, some of the challenges you're seeing firms are facing right now, and take it away.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Phil. And I want to start with a couple things from your numbers that jumped out and confirmed what I've been seeing. And my space is partner focused, and so I'll stay on topic for that. I wasn't surprised, but your numbers really solidified my view that partner movement has been growing over the years that I've been doing this. And I know we had a 2020 downturn, and you have these little blips down in the AmLaw 200 or in the larger firms coming out of that bounce back we had in 21 and 22. But the overall trend is really up. So more partners are moving, and it's a recognition in my mind that is the primary way to grow a firm, either on revenue, clients, services that you can provide to your clients. And so it's really, from where I sit, it's great. It's great for firms. It's great for candidates. It's great for people involved in this, as it's a reflection of opportunity in the market. The other thing that popped out to me, and I might be looking at your data wrong, but on this exit data, it seems to be an increase over the past 3 years of, I'll call it, tracked law firm leavers, right? When I added up those numbers, it wasn't quite 100%. And in 2022, there's a 90% that's unaccounted for. I'm sorry, 10% that's unaccounted for. And then we get to 2024 and there's 31% that's unaccounted for. And as somebody who, I love the legal profession, lawyers, getting out there doing work, solving complex problems for clients, is where are these people going that are leaving law? And I want to turn it back to you. It's something, if I'm reading that wrong, let me know.
No, it's a great call out. Yeah. So we have a whole category when we're analyzing data called unknown. And essentially what it means is people that have just left their firm and are in a position where we yet haven't tracked where they've left. They haven't updated LinkedIn. They haven't done anything. They're sort of in a holding pattern, if you will. And that speaks to potentially, they're leaving for a variety of reasons, and they're, not, maybe they're taking a break from what they want to do. Who knows what those things are? But over time, that unknown category shrinks, which is why we see a smaller gap in 2022, because eventually people move somewhere and we're able to account for them.
You're able to pick them back up. Thanks so much for that. The other thing that I wanted to say about this, and that provides clarity to this point too, is what I have noticed this year compared to previous years is the sustained momentum of moves through the year. We had a really robust summer. And importantly, in all of that, the candidate engagement has been well above our historical average for people that we're talking to that are interested in exploring opportunities, that are interviewing with firms and allowing us to submit them to firms. And to me, it's a reflection of people are excited about the opportunity from a candidate perspective, and that's driving this as much as firms are driving this.
Awesome. Jessica, I'm going to kick it over to you. Give me your thoughts on the year so far and some of the challenges firms are facing or you guys are facing, and thoughts to kind of kick things off.
Sure. So I definitely agree with Dave. We're seeing a lot more, movement and engagement from potential laterals out in the market. What stood out to me this year and even last year, I've been doing this for over 10 years, is how savvy lateral partners are when it comes to making a move. I think a lot of that is because they've maybe made a move before, and maybe 10 years ago we didn't see as much movement, but they're asking a lot of direct questions about the business side of the firm. They want to know about the operations. They want to know what our growth strategy is. They want to know, are you looking to merge? Are you looking to grow into 1,000, 2,000 lawyer firm? They want to understand how origination credits work. Rate flexibility is a big question. Autonomy, over how they run their practice support, BD support, our in-office, hybrid policy. How much is it enforced? What is the policy? What does that look like? Leadership opportunities, definitely looking for, lateral partners and attorneys who are looking to be good firm citizens and join us, on that leadership journey. But we're getting those questions now, and a lot more detailed, pointed, direct questions, which I enjoy. I like that they're thinking about it, at that level. And I think, the challenges remain, the same, I think, across the board, where you have these generational differences in the workplace. But we need to meet attorneys where they are, in their career and in their life, where they are right now at that point. Some are looking for more flexibility. They're looking for more remote opportunities or alternative schedules, lower billable hour requirements. But leadership development, career development, coaching, those are the types of topics that are coming up that maybe we didn't see 3 to 5 years ago.
Awesome. Jeffrey, what are your thoughts so far?
Yeah, sure. And thanks for having me. What you're seeing is just the continuation of a trend that started over 20 years ago. I think the law firms have realized that the easiest way to grow their firms is through lateral hires. You basically have 3 ways to do it. You could teach your existing partners who've never generated business before to generate business. And it's very difficult to do, and it's very unlikely. You have mergers. And, we've certainly seen increased merger activity this year, but that's also very hard to do. And, if you look historically at many of the mergers that have been done, not all of them have been terribly good. So that leaves you with lateral partner hiring. The big change that we see, and we play in a slightly different market. We're more focused on the AmLaw 30 and AmLaw 50 firms. Is we've seen the elite firms who formerly really didn't participate in the market enter it in a big way. And if you look over the last 5 years, virtually every firm, wherever they are in the PPP chart, and especially those up in the top, what we would consider the elite, 20 or 30 firms, they're in it and the gloves are off. And we have a situation now where virtually everybody has the potential to be in play. And, a lot of the movement that you're seeing is taking place at the very high level. And to me, I mean, that's just the biggest difference we've seen for as long as I've been doing it.
Cool. And Tracy, I'm sorry, go ahead, David.
Yeah, I was going to echo what Jeff has said. Over the past couple of years and this year, really those upper echelons of firms in the AmLaw 20, 30, they have jumped in the market. You've seen firms bring people in that have not hired laterals before, or not that many, and you've seen firms that relatively rarely lose more laterals, and it shows the strength of the belief from leaders on the best way to grow, or an elegant way to grow by bringing people in, individuals and groups.
Awesome.
And this just makes me think that we have to focus on retention and making sure our current partners are happy and growing and want to stay, right? And so yes,
Right.
While we're out there looking for talent to bring on, I also want to make sure that we focus heavily on our current partnership.
Yeah, it's interesting when we look at the data. You see firms that have a lot of hires in a year, but they also the ones that see a lot of people leave in an existing year. And it's like, I always use the analogy, it's like a duck on water, right? They're swimming like crazy and they're having increases on a year-over-year basis, but it's a lot of work to kind of have marginal increase. So retention is a big part of everyone's firm strategy. I 100% agree. And Jessica, I want to go back to something you mentioned during a pre-call. You said something along the lines of a lot of combinations are happening, but a lot of them are happening and being announced early. Do you want to sort of expand on your thought there at all?
Sure. I'm definitely interested, I think, particularly what Dave and Jeffrey have to say on this topic. But we're seeing the level of activity of mergers in the market where they used to they were undercover, they were, kept very quiet until you were ready to announce. But now we're seeing it, when letter of intents are signed, probably to get ahead of, the press and get ahead of the messaging. But that's just creating a frenzy in the market, way sooner than I think that you would have seen. And how do you retain the partners and attorneys knowing that there's kind of this uncertainty going on, and then all of the recruiters are going to start calling, or they're going to start having exploratory conversations. So I'm really interested in the perspective from Dave and Jeff here on this.
Yeah, it's really an excellent point. You're absolutely right. I mean, firms used to go to great lengths to hide the fact that they were in merger discussions. It would inevitably leak, and then people would start calling. The problem I see it with announcing early is that it can have the effect of really freezing activity at a firm, certainly on the inbound side, because people who we might want to introduce to either one or both of those firms, might be hesitant because they don't really know what they're going to be buying at that point. And at the same time, for the partners who are at either of the target firms, they don't know what they're going to be left with. And so from an inbound perspective, it can make it difficult. And it certainly can have the effect of increasing outbound activity. We've definitely seen that over the years ahead of mergers. Sometimes by the time the firm finally gets to merge, they're 50% of what they were at the start of the process or just a year or two before. So you're absolutely right. There definitely seems to be a trend to announce it. I'm just not so sure it's helpful.
Yeah, and I've noticed that trend as well. And Jeff, you hit one of the things that I think the early announcement does is it creates some uncertainty in what firm are you going to if you're not at either of those involved. So if you're counseling a candidate, if I'm counseling a candidate about it, it's really have to say, I don't exactly know what the firm's going to be if they do the merger. So it does put some of that it takes away some of the momentum that you might otherwise have for a move. And that can be costly, particularly if you're talking about a group that's coming in, because it will change the dynamics. One thing that I've heard is, and it's come up a couple times in the past year, is big players at the firm finding out midstream, before it's really announced, that there's some transaction going on, and they haven't been told. And so they're a big producer, and that can create some tension between the leadership of the firm that doesn't want to do that. So I think part of this might be getting ahead of that as well, to circle the wagons and let people know more what you're doing, and what's in it for them in this whatever transaction's being contemplated.
Love that. So this next question, it will be for Jessica and Tracy. And Tracy, you kind of alluded to it initially when you were talking about retention. So what keeps you up at night more? Is it retaining your top talent, or is it finding new talent? And then any particular things you're putting in place to kind of help support those efforts?
So I did say retention was important, but for me also finding the right talent, because knock on wood, our attrition's pretty good. So it is finding the right talent at the right time. I'm in we're in smaller markets. We're not big law, so it's a little bit of a different market. And just, it takes time. And, they usually call me when they needed someone yesterday. So just finding the right people, making sure that they're vetting the candidates well enough and not just making rush decisions. So, my motto to them is slow to hire, and then if it doesn't work out, do it quick. But you're really just properly vetting the candidates, making sure that they are really looking and doing their due diligence before hiring.
Awesome. Jessica?
Like Tracy, knock on wood, we don't see a lot of attorneys leaving for competing firms. So I'm more focused on making sure we have the right teams and resources in place to support our growth goals, which come down from the board. Everyone knows what they are. We celebrate them. Everyone celebrates in the success. We've brought on about 24 Lateral partners since last April, opened a new office in Southern California. So we've really been putting, pedal to the metal. But when you do that, you have to make sure that the experience is seamless for the Lateral partners and groups joining. So I am really focused on, the firm's very focused on making sure that experience is as easy as possible. So that's working, with marketing, business development, IT, KM, talent, risk, and compliance. We're all rowing in the same direction. And the great part is, because it's a board goal and everyone knows, everyone gets excited, everyone is invested, they understand how their part and their contributions matter and impact that overall goal. So that has I say that's our secret sauce to the success here, because every single time we bring on a Lateral, everyone is excited, or a group, and we are constantly improving our processes.
I love that. And that speaks to your retention, in my opinion. So you've given out your secret sauce, but I'm a big advocate of breaking down silos between departments and having everyone focus and work towards a common goal. So great thoughts. I'm going to segue a little bit, because actually someone asked this question in the chat about AI. AI is definitely something that is being discussed quite a bit. I always like to say that we were AI before AI was cool. But with respect to AI and everything that AI is happening now, I'm curious to hear your thoughts individually. This will go around the room. Maybe Jeffrey, you want to kick things off. How are you leveraging AI in your role? What do you see the impact on lateral hiring, if any?
Sure. I think it will be tremendous over time. I think we're still at the very early stages of it, and you have to be very careful with it in legal hiring, just the same as you do in any other sphere of life. We've been looking at it very carefully, and we've also been testing it against traditional search methods to see just how good AI is. And, on the one hand, it's incredible. You can just, go to ChatGPT or one of the other engines and just throw in a couple of phrases, and it's remarkable what they kick back. But, we're always a little scared about what do they miss? When we're counseling clients and, trying to find the best homes for them, it can be very easy to just look at a ChatGPT answer and rattle off those firms. But, that's not us doing our job. And so while we found it can be a helpful place to start for some things, there's really no substitute still yet for all the years of experience that we have. I think in terms of firms, I think it's going to have a tremendous impact on their hiring practices, particularly at the more junior levels over time. The partner stuff, I think it's going to be harder for it to have as big an impact as quickly, because so much of that is just relationship and nuance and things like that. And so, it's definitely something you have to be paying attention to.
David?
I agree with a lot of what Jeff said. It's something to be careful with as you ramp into it. There needs to be some thought and intentionality on as you deploy these tools, as with any new tool. What is it? What are you really trying to solve with it, and how does it help you in your process, or if you're a lawyer, solving clients' problems? My thoughts on where it is right now, is that it's great for leveraging the wealth of experience and information that you may have put together, over the years. I'm excited about the ways we're looking at using this to provide deeper insight and deeper just analysis for folks, and being able to access all the industry knowledge that we have, that anybody can do it when these things are set up appropriately. I agree that with, where I see right now some of the issues or the challenge is a person who thinks, I can just put it in ChatGPT and find those 10 firms that are perfect for me. And well, that's ChatGPT saying that. What do I know, or do others know about those firms that will actually help you make a really good decision that will lead to the retention and the 3 or 5 year retention rate? And on the other side of that, because you can do it right now, show me all the candidates at law firms that should, be at my firm. And it'll give you a great list. But making a list isn't the part of relationship and recruiting and even selling legal services that, on which decisions are made. It's really an understanding of, how people are valued and what they're going to get out of it. So I think it's going to be, as Jeff said, I think the word you used, Jeff, was it'll be tremendous in the long run down the road. Right now it's just, caution, but it's excited about what this can do for us and helping us better match people and help them have more information and insight about where they're going to take their career. The last thing on this, I think it does change hiring profiles as you're coming into firms right now, and it will impact younger lawyers. I think firms should be looking for people that are, I'll call them technology natives, right? That really understand it. There may need to be some hiring for technologists that understand technology. And then you'll have to have the partners and associates that act as those decoders in the middle that can explain to the legal folks what the technology can do, and to the technologists what the legal issues are. So I think it changes what we're looking for down the road.
Yeah. And now, Jessica and Tracy, before you guys answer, do your firms have AI policies in place at all? And then again, how is it benefiting you guys in your roles, if at all, and the impact it is on your firms?
They are cautious. We are rolling out a policy. So on the legal services side, they are working with, the Lexuses and Westlaws and whatnot. And that's outside my realm. For me, no. Leopard, LinkedIn, everything seems to be built in. So I do love a little bit of the the ease of, drafting a job description from start and then having someone edit it clearly. Those are helpful. Those took some time. So I love, prompting and say we're, mid-sized law firm, draft me a job description,
Right.
XYZ. And then I don't just use that. And I see a lot of people just using that. But it's a good start. And I think it's made some, great, made our process a little bit more efficient, but very new. I mean, I'm excited and nervous.
We do have policies in place, and we actually just rolled out of our first cohort of partners, associates, and business professionals through a robust training program with VLEX, and attorneys are learning how to use it, how to create the prompts, use it ethically. And then they're going out to clients and actually showing them how they're using it and how they can use it and harness it as well. And we're offering trainings to our clients. So I'm very proud of what we've been able to accomplish in that space. And I think the world is just changing so rapidly that the base foundation of what we're looking for in attorneys is still that intellectual curiosity. So, we're looking for folks, no matter what it is on the technology side, but they're keeping an open mind. They're proactively exploring new developments, trying to make those connections to see how they can better serve their clients. Those are always going to be the best attorneys or the folks that you want on your team, no matter how the landscape changes. So just continuing to look for that intellectual curiosity remains the same for me.
I love that. And then to kind of expand on that, I mean, the amount of money obviously being thrown into AI right now and technology, legal technology is insane. And you see articles now as well where private equity is potentially investing for, or being, positioned to help support recruiting and potentially support law firms and business professionals and stuff like that. This is a question for anyone in the group. Anyone wants to take this, but from my perspective, I see the industry. I've been in the industry for over 25 years, and it felt like what happened over the course of 5 years in the start of my career is happening over 6 months now. So that was just and I'm amazed to see where we'll be in 5 years with respect to these areas. But any thoughts anyone has on private equity's connection with lateral hiring and law firms? I'll open it up to anyone who wants to jump in.
Yeah, it's really incredible to see, and I think your analogy is very apt, Phil. It seems to be happening all at once, and there's so much pressure bearing down on the industry for it that it almost seems inevitable. I know from having talked with many partners, this is definitely one of those things where they're like, be careful what you wish for, because the law firms have been, insulated, largely because of the ethics rules for a long, long time. And I think it has even more potential to upset the industry than AI does. And then the combination of the two coming at once is really, quite incredible. So, we'll have to see, but I think, private equity has clearly set its sights on this vertical, and they're coming. And as you've seen, even just this week and last week, you have firms who are saying, yeah, we're engaging in conversations about it and, trying to look at ways to make it happen.
Yeah, I think, and I'll add how it accelerated just in the past month is really amazing. It's not 6 months. It really went. The discussion changed over a matter of weeks, and a lot of that is because big firms have said, "Oh yeah, we're talking about it. Doesn't mean we're going to do it." I had an opportunity to talk to a former law firm chair last week and a couple of other law firm leaders, and the sense was, and this is at different levels, that talent and technology are so expensive right now. Right, it's a huge cost for firms. Finding ways in order to compete for that talent and to stay ahead or in pace with technology advancements, you need some capital. And there's only so much you have when you're taking money in and sending it out each year. So finding a way to do that makes sense. I think less people are involved in it simply to, hey, let me cash it out. I think most firms are looking at it as a way to maintain a talent or technology or some other economic advantage, and it does free them up to do that. It would be interesting to see what happens. Some of the structures that are being talked about, we've seen smaller remote firms or virtual firms do those in the past, breaking off their technology platform, that sort of thing. And this is a natural advance, at least to me, seems a natural advance on that. And Jeff made a comment. Private equity is going to get here. They're going to find a way to do it because money seeks its own level like water. There's opportunity to be made here, and there's value to be created as well. There's value for firms to, in some circumstances and in some structures, to enter into these transactions because it's going to free them up to better serve their clients, offer better service, offer new products or new type of legal work. So I think it's really interesting. I'll be curious to see what happens in the next 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, speaking with managing partners, I mean, obviously, and you guys know this, but the talent management is the largest expenditure of these firms. So figuring out a way to help support their largest investment, I'm sure that money will, like you said, lead its way into like water. Go where it needs to go. We have a question in the chat that I thought I would bounce it over to you, Jeff and Dave, if you don't mind. And then that kind of segues into our last section here about integration and retention and so on and so forth. So question is for Jeff, Dave, maybe Jeff, you want to take this first. What are some of the firm best practices around integrating partners with portable business, especially when you're evaluating a ROI? And Jessica and Tracy, please, if you guys have ideas on it as well, jump in.
Sure. Well, first of all, you want to really start that analysis before you ever bring them in. And I have to say, over the last 10 years especially, law firms have gotten much better with their lateral hiring and really critically examining whether or not the partner has the level of business that they claim to. The reality is that some firms are just much, much better at it than others. And that's why, I wince when I see some of the statistics used that, maybe only 50% of lateral hires are successful. It's certainly not our experience, but I know, from having seen certain firms hire people that others have passed on that, there's a lot of bad investments being made. I think, the integration part is so key. And I think the biggest complaint that we get from the partners that we've placed is that the firm has promised me this, that, and the other thing once I joined the firm. And, they were all rah, to get me over here. And now I'm sitting here and nothing is happening. And I'm happy to do my part. I'm happy to go visit every office. I'm going out there. I'm trying to beat the bushes. But I just feel like the firm isn't doing anything to help me with that. And that's where, we typically see most lateral hires fail, is just a fundamental inability of the firm who's brought this new member on to really integrate them as part of the team. And I know firms are working on it. You have, I would say, probably virtually every firm these days, someone who's the head of integration. But again, we just see such disparate levels of success at different firms. And, I've been saying this forever, and I still believe it. If you don't have the right people, both in charge of your lateral hiring and in charge of your lateral integration, and they could be the same person, but they could just as easily not be. But if you're not taking care of both pieces of the puzzle, you're killing yourself, and you are creating such a competitive disadvantage for your firm in the marketplace.
I love that. David?
Yeah, so over the past 10 years, Jeff, I agree with you on this. Firms have gotten a lot better at bringing people in and integrating them. We've seen more professionals elevated to that integration officer or whatever title we're using, and they're taking it seriously. It's not just, we're going to get this person here and boom, they're going to recreate the business that they've claimed that they've had without any work. And firms have to be on that. I think I've talked about it. Integration, actually, our thoughts on integration should start as soon as from the first interview, right? The first meeting. What is this going to look like? I think a good practice, best practice, is to involve your marketing and BD people at some point in this to help with seeing the cross-selling, opportunities, or seeing, hey, there's something new we can do here, and then somebody owning that. And that's what the integrations officers are for, is to own the outcome and the execution of that. I think when we talk about retention, and I'm gonna slide into culture a little bit here. People move for money. Money's important, but that's not the primary driver for move. It's going to be something else, and it can be anything from how you feel at work to the clients. Understanding that when a person comes in, and appointing a sponsor over that, I believe in sort of, who's your cultural champion that's going to meet the person in integration from the beginning. This is how we do things here. This is how we're going to help you, integrate, and really kind of what the firm feels about. I think that adds to the stickiness that someone will have over time. So those are the thoughts that I have on integration. Very important. You can't just leave it to the wind. Hey, it'll work out. You really got to be intentional and have a plan on it.
And David, I was going to say, Jessica, you straddle both sides of the marketing and the recruiting side. And David, I think, teed it up perfectly for you. You want to share your thoughts on it?
We were very intentional about putting lateral partner growth and marketing and business development all under the same growth umbrella, because on day one, the first time I meet a candidate, that's exactly what I'm thinking about. And when we're looking at, the LPQ and going through the, thinking about the ROI on this investment and how much we anticipate them bringing over, I sit down with them and go line by line, client by client, because you have to really dig in. What are your alternative fee arrangements with this client? What has the billing history been here? How did you get this client? Are they coming up for RFP? And because I work so closely with our marketing and business development folks, we know those types of questions to ask and how to dig in and make sure that we're not having someone show up on day one and, hey, we actually have different rates for this client. And then it turns into a whole thing and they're already here. Like, that would be my worst nightmare. We want to make sure everything is on the table, because sometimes we have shared clients. Well, your rates are lower than ours. How are we bringing them up? Or vice versa, right? How do we go back to the client and say, we brought on this great partner or group, and good news for us, your rates are higher, and we need to level that out. But we need to have those conversations on the upfront. But we also, create a very detailed business plan for them joining, integration plan. And one thing I'm very purposeful about is including what we are going to do in that plan. What are we saying? What support we're going to be providing the integration partner who's in charge of kind of their social integration, but also the person that they can ask questions to. But we're very purposeful about making sure that we're including all of that when we do our check-ins. I'm checking to make sure that we're holding ourselves just as accountable. But like, bringing marketing and business development in very early is just so critical.
Great. Tracy, how is it at your firm?
I would say it's just make sure you have a champion for them, and make sure that there's always someone, checking in with them. I'm always available. I will insert myself when maybe I'm not supposed to, but I just want to make sure that they're doing well. And then I'll bring it to marketing or billing or whoever it might be. But there should always be someone assigned to them from day one. Our executive committee does all what it seems Jessica does. So I defer, I leave it to them how they vet our candidates.
Tracy,
go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, Tracy, you make such a good point on the have a champion or a sponsor or whatever you want to call it. I think sometimes getting caught up in the deal terms, right? What is this person bringing? You forget that there's this person here. And a lot of people move because they don't feel valued, and that lack of feeling valued shows up in different ways for each person. So if you make them feel important, if you can connect with them and say, this is call me anytime. Hey, how are you doing? What do you do? It adds, it's old-fashioned recruiting, and but it makes a big difference.
So easy. And, so.
Awesome. All right. Well, there's a number of questions in the chat, and I just want to make sure I've been trying to balance the pre-questions we had. I don't know if you guys see the chat. I'm going to just really run through some of the questions about the data that I presented. There was a question about the attrition data that is based on attorneys that were hired from the point they were hired and if they stayed at least 3 years. Again, people talked about successful hires. Successful hires take on a lot of different perspectives, right? What's in a successful hire? Generating business, integrating into the culture. When we run the numbers, it's purely based on how long people stay. So, there's a lot of variables that, and each firm would have, I'm sure, their own definition of success. I don't know if Tracy or Jessica, do you guys quantify success in a variety of different ways? Do you have any measurements of that from your perspective?
It's different for there's different reasons why we bring different laterals in. I mean, we're looking at succession planning for some of them. So we're not really looking for a book of business, but we're looking for a very unique or deep expertise in a certain area that's critical for our clients, or we're looking to stay ahead of what's coming, down the market to offer new products to our clients. So there's different metrics for different partners, and just like integration, there's no one size fits all. So we look at each opportunity, each acquisition in its own unique way.
Awesome.
Right. I think same as Jessica.
There was a question on the combination data. I showed numbers around total attorneys that came on board. There was a question about partners only. I could share that information. We're going to send around the recording, so I'll make sure we include a response to that and get that data, but we can break that out. Do you guys do exit? There's a question around the folks that leave law. Do you guys do exit interviews when people leave? Okay.
Yes. And we do, and as anonymous, and we try to keep it as confidential as we can, but to the extent we can make changes, we do immediately.
Awesome.
And what are people typically telling you? What are you hearing from the partners that are leaving your firms?
Oh, it's mostly associates, I'll say. We don't really have partners leaving, thank God. I mean, I'm keeping my fingers very tightly crossed.
Awesome.
I would just say,
when they leave, but most of them are, going in-house or retiring. And sometimes there's just, there's something about their practice that just makes sense for them to go, elsewhere. We are very lucky, I think, and unique that we have a lot of boomerangs who come back to the firm, partners who come back. I'm a boomerang myself. So we have a club of boomerangs who kind of go out there in the world to see what else is out there and realize, it's all right here at home. So we've been lucky.
I actually have a boomerang. Yeah, we have a boomerang coming back in a little bit. And, more so from the associate level, they felt that they made a mistake and that they enjoyed the support they got here and that the grass wasn't greener and that, they joined a firm that was a little bit more remote than they had liked. And it's telling. It was really, and she had a great exit interview. So I'm looking forward to her seeing the changes that were made since she left.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Yeah.
There's a question in the chat for Dave and for Jeffrey. Biggest motivator to get a lateral to leave a top 20 or a top 30 firm. They see a lot of firms. This is from a mid-size, smaller firm. They see a lot of laterals that don't have a book of business. And how do you sell them to a smaller firm, the big top 20, top 30 firms, if at all? What are your thoughts around that?
Sure. So for some people, they can be at a very, very profitable firm, but it's just not right for their practice. They might have some business, but you're getting to a point where even $5 million at some of these firms isn't really enough, and they're actively managing some of those people out. And so, I think what these people want to feel is that the firm's client base and rates align with their practices and clients, and also that their voice will be heard. I think, you have a lot of people who, have been very successful in life, very successful in college and law school. They go to wonderful firms and they reach a point where, for whatever reason, it just hasn't clicked. And they can feel very left out of what's going on at their own firms. And so many of them are energized by moving to a platform, that's better aligned with their client base and where they're much more appreciated. So I think that's, an important thing for firms who are maybe less profitable to focus on, and let those partners know, your voice will matter more here. We're going to care about it.
Yeah, I agree. It's the primary motivator for somebody to leave those firms has to do with whether they're valued or feel valued in the right way and appreciated. It comes up in different ways. I can think of certain practice areas right now where it really is rates. When you $2,000 or $3,000 when everybody else in the market, regardless of the firm, is down at $1,700 or something like that, makes it tough. So you might want to give up the prestige to go and actually be able to do the work with the clients that you resonate with. I think the other part of the question is, how do you sell? How do you present as an opportunity somebody that might be coming from one of those firms that doesn't have a book of business into a firm at a different level? And I think it's challenging because so many firms are looking for, hey, what's the book of business that I can immediately bring in? And for me, when we position it, it's talking about what the investment is and what the value of the person can add and what the value creation potential is over time. And firms have to be willing to, in my mind, take a look at that and not hire for, hey, what does this person bring right now? But what can we do with this person that has this incredible pedigree and skill that allows us to open new markets, provide services to existing clients that we couldn't before, and essentially take a holistic approach. And on the recruiting front, you can't expect the immediate ROI on that. You have to extend it to 2 or 3 years and think about what is it going to mean over that time. And that's tough. That's tough for firms, particularly on the way they're structured, to think about how do you capitalize that.
All right, we're going to wrap it up because we're coming up on the hour here. I'd love to get everyone's crystal ball on what they think. We talked about the quickness and of change in the industry, but what do we think the rest of the year is going to look like? Because it's fast approaching, and 2026. Where do we think we're going to go? Tracy, you want to kick it off?
I'm just excited to see what AI does to the firms, and truthfully, the whole private equity talk is. I don't know if we should be excited. I haven't decided what to feel about that, but I am very interested in seeing where that goes. As far as recruiting for us, I think it's going to continue to expand our practices, and look for top talent.
Love it, Jessica.
Sure. I mean, I think that we'll continue to see this flurry of activity, particularly as we see these mergers happening and these mega mergers, which are just further segmenting the market a bit. And I think that laterals will, they know where they want to be and they know where their practice should be. And they'll be looking for that right firm, that right fit, the Goldilocks, right, of what's just right for my rates, for my client service, how I can support them, what my impact is, to the enterprise, how big is my seat at the table. And there's a lot more definition around that, and as well as how geography has become less and less important. So there's widened the talent pool. We didn't get to touch on it today, but really interested to see how lateral associate hiring will continue to increase with the way OCI is happening now. And these kids are being contacted, before they even show up on day one at law school. So, I think firms are just kind of saying, we'll just keep doing what we're doing with OCI or our summer classes. But I think lateral associate hiring will just become more and more important as firms just try and figure out what to do with this new world, Wild West, that is hiring brand new lawyers.
Yeah, when I was doing the data points, Entry-level hiring was a piece I was going to add to this, but the topic was mostly on lateral recruiting. But you're 100% right. You're seeing changes in the hiring patterns and all sorts of stuff around entry-level hiring. But more to come on that. And I agree with you. It's going to have an impact because they're the future attorneys that'll be part of the industry. David, anything you want to? What's your crystal ball look like?
Continued movement because of the forces that we've been talking about, chasing talent, chasing technology, chasing different business structures. People will be moving in and out in order to get comfortable with the landscape as it develops.
Awesome. And Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely. More and faster. One of the funny things about the pandemic is it actually accelerated the pace of lateral partner hiring because you used to have to go visit every office or many of the most important offices. And the funny thing we hear from candidates today is, hey, am I actually going to get to go over to the office and meet people in person now? I mean, everyone has gotten so incredibly comfortable with doing these not only preliminary interviews, but later stage interviews by Zoom. And it's really accelerated the pace of movement. And with the elite level firms in on the game now, you're just, barring some economic disaster, you're just going to see more and more and more, and it's all going to continue to happen faster and faster.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I was having a conversation with a colleague of mine this morning around the difficulty it is to actually get to meet people in person. And we talked all about the relationship aspect of the business. So I wonder if that's going to have an impact down the road, losing that face time with people. So,
sure.
But great observations, and appreciate you guys joining the webinar today and providing your insights. A lot of great insights shared, and everyone joining on the webinar. I was going to say Zoom, but it's on 24. Taylor, you want to wrap it up for us?
Yeah. Thank you so much for everyone for joining us in the chat, in the waiting room, and our panelists here. Very informative webinar. I love all the takes that we're throwing out there, and hopefully everyone could come away with something a little bit interesting from today's webinar. Again, the webinar recording will be sent out to everyone who signed up for the webinar tomorrow. So take a look at that in your inboxes tomorrow. In the chat at the very top, I linked everyone's LinkedIn, all the speakers' LinkedIn, so you can connect with them online. And thank you all for joining us. We have a great webinar in January coming up, our annual State of the Legal Industry webinar. If you scan that QR code, you can get to a page in which you can do an early sign up. So that's exciting. Always one of our biggest webinars of the year. So looking forward to that. But again, thank you everyone for joining us. We love doing these, and we're hopefully to do more of these.
I'll be right out.
Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.